Hello, thank you for watching, and this is News Done Differently for the 29th day of March 2022. It is currently 10:02 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we begin tonight. So much to talk about. We begin with little weather information, which we normally don't do, but for those in the United States, basically anyone in the middle of the United States, this part of the country will be hit later on tonight. Tomorrow, the possibility of a single very strong line of storms stretching all the way from the Gulf of Mexico all the way up to the Great Lakes in Michigan. And the good thing about this is it will be a single line of storms more than likely and not divided cells. Single cells are where tornadoes are generally produced. A line of storms like this, we won't see many tornadoes more than likely. However, the wind gusts are expected to be very severe. So if you're in this part, anywhere in the central part of the country tomorrow, be prepared for possible power outages and possibly some power outages that will last for quite some time. David Frostman, a top civilian commander at a U.S. air base in Afghanistan, when he jokingly asked an IT technician for access to YouPorn, the video sharing pornography website. During his time in the war zone, Frostman told one woman that he hired her because he wanted to be surrounded by pretty women and routinely called others honey, babe, and cougar before he was ordered home after military verified multiple allegations of sexual assault. Quote, I would not recommend placing him back into a position of authority, but rather pursuing disciplinary actions at his home station, end quote, wrote one commanding officer. When he did get back to his home station, he rejoined the Network Enterprise Technology Command, the Army's information technology service provider, where he had served as director of personnel for a global command of 15,000 soldiers and civilians. By the spring of the following year, he was arrested in Arizona for leading a child sex abuse ring that included an Army sergeant who was posting child pornography to the internet. Among the victims was one of Frodshem's own stepsons or adopted son. And there we go. Civilian Army leader led child porn ring, risked U.S. security. I do not have a connection yet between him and QAnon. This just came to my attention. But people, if you want to do something, if you want to make a difference, if you're tired of the sex trafficking, start looking at people that are associated not only with QAnon but with the Trump organization, and I'm not going to say the entire Republican Party yet, but they need to step up. The Republican Party needs to step up, and the Democrat Party. You don't realize you're at war when Marjorie Taylor Greene comes out and says, "You Democrats are Taliban." It's not just rhetoric. She's talking to people. Okay, she's talking to people who are potentially dangerous. How dangerous? Let's get to that. This is an incredibly troubling show. Donald Trump calls on Russia in the middle of its invasion of Ukraine to release supposed dirt on Hunter Biden. Okay, remember our rules of propaganda. Accuse the other side of that which you are guilty. Of course, if you tell a lie, and keep repeating it, people will eventually believe it. First of all, it was all of Hillary's emails, Hillary's emails, Hillary's emails. Hillary sat before Congress for the equivalent of a 24-hour period over 2 days, and nothing came of it. Now it's going to be get dirt on Hunter Biden, get dirt on Hunter Biden, get dirt on Hunter Biden, trying to deflect from what is actually going on. And what is actually going on? Well, let's take a quick listen. This is Russian television.
США досрочно и снова помочь нашему партнеру Трампу стать президентом. Нам, нашему народу, пришло.
It's time for us, for our people. He's talking to the Russians. Thanks for watching. It's news done differently.
Штатов сменить режим. Нам, нашему народу, пришло время призвать.
It's time for us, our people. He's talking to the Russians. It's time for the Russian people to call on the people of the United States.
Народ Соединенных Штатов сменить.
To change the regime in the United States early. Okay, this is Russia's television sending a message. The same message that Marjorie Taylor Greene is sending. The same message Donald Trump is sending to the people that follow them. This is for real. Maybe I'm the only one that sees it. If I am, then thank you all for watching. If not, share this with whoever. Share this with your favorite CNN broadcaster, your MSNBC. Fox isn't going to do anything with it because it's incriminating. But share these things. That's the only. Don't depend on the political structure. You gotta, and you can't just send it randomly to media. You got to look for actual reporters who care, okay? And whoever you think that may be, let them know about this stuff, please.
Режим в США досрочно.
Again, to change the regime in the United States early, and to again help our partner Trump.
Снова помочь нашему партнеру.
Now, if you don't want to believe this, you can go through and Google translate it word for word on your own. But this is what Russia, this is what Putin is telling Trump, Marjorie Taylor Greene, all of these others that are in line. He's saying it's time for those people to rise up and overthrow the government. And I've been telling you, they're not going to wait. If you're really woke, be woke to this. Draw attention to it. Make so much awareness come out of it that there is no way they can rise up because everybody's watching. Otherwise, you may not even know about it until it's already over.
Партнеру Трампу стать президентом. Нам, нашему народу, пришло время призвать народ Соединенных Штатов сменить режим в США досрочно и снова помочь нашему партнеру Трампу стать президентом. Нам, нашему народу, пришло.
How much more plain can we lay it out? Trump comes out today, okay, and calls on Russia to dig up some dirt on Hunter Biden. Russia doesn't have any dirt on Hunter Biden, but they will dig something up. They will create something. And the people that believe Trump will believe whatever it is Russia creates, unless the United States media starts playing this kind of stuff and starts really truly informing the people, okay? Not just deciding what's important, what the people can, you know, you can't, here's how it works, okay? You can't get too nuanced because the American people, their attention spans are really short and they like glitzy and they like glam. And if you don't, if you take too much time, that's how the media decides what you see. And we're in an incredibly dangerous time in our society, in my opinion. And if you agree with that, you got to do something about it. One more time, from the top.
Нам, нашему народу, пришло время призывать народ Соединенных Штатов сменить режим в США досрочно и снова помочь нашему партнеру Трампу стать президентом. Нам, нашему...
And there's so much more. We've got so much more news. I'm sure everybody thought, well, he just put Republican cocaine orgy up there to he just put Republican congressional orgy up there just to get clicks. No, all of this stuff is important. All of this stuff matters. Madison Cawthorn, who said earlier, and I've got a clip in case there's any question to it. He says that when they take back Congress, that he's going to put Anthony Fauci in jail for telling everybody about the COVID virus. So he does an interview. This is Newsweek, by the way. He does an interview, and he says DC elite invited him to an orgy, did cocaine in front of him. Of course, the speaker of the minority leader of the House, Kevin McCarthy, says Madison's wrong. If there's any thug in the world, it's Putin. Not really addressing the cocaine, addressing the fact that Madison Cawthorn also said that Zelensky is a thug. Here's the text. Representative Madison Cawthorn, a North Carolina Republican, said in a recent interview that leaders that he looked up to in Washington, D.C. had invited him to an orgy and did cocaine in front of him. Cawthorn, 26, is a freshman congressman, currently the youngest member of Congress. He's drawn criticism from Democrats and Republicans, and just normal, regular human beings have criticized this guy because he's got like so many different privileges that he projects. He's got white privilege, he's got man privilege, he's got Congress privilege. He's a staunch supporter of former President Trump, and he made the remarks about the orgy and drug use during an interview broadcast last Thursday on Warrior Poets Society, hosted by John Lovell. In the interview, Lovell asked the congressman about Netflix series, fictitious show, and he gave basically the same answer Clinton did. I heard a former president we had in the 90s was asked the question, and he said, the only thing accurate in the show is you can never get a piece of legislation about education passed. I really don't know why they have all of this in there. I really do. They have it all in here because they're not really good journalists, okay? Because they've got this story, but instead of actually telling the story, they're putting these other things in. Now, this is a quote from Cathorn, but it's buried. They've buried the lead. Okay. So they want the clicks but they really want you to dig for the story. This is how it works. Quote, the sexual perversion that goes on in Washington. I mean, being kind of a young guy in Washington, average age is probably 60 or 70. I look at a lot of these people, a lot of them I've looked up to through my life. I've always paid attention to politics. And then all of a sudden you get invited to, oh, hey, we're going to have a sexual get together at one of our homes. You should come. Cawthorn then put on a shocked expression, saying his response was, what did you just ask me to come to? And then you realize they're asking you to come to an orgy. The Republican lawmaker also said that some of the people who are leading on the movement to try and remove addiction in our country have done key bumps of cocaine right in front of him. North Carolina representative did not provide names or clarify whether the interactions were with elected members of Congress. I don't know, just something to think about. Well,
before the Russian invasion, Ukraine was home to about 44 million people, roughly the same as Spain. It's one of the largest countries by landmass, not population, on the European continent. So it's a big and important place, but it's not the kind of place that would normally be at the center of U.S. politics, except it very much has been. For years, Ukraine has occupied an outsized role in American political discourse. Just look at a guy like Paul Manafort. I remember him. Back in 2016, he was named chairman of the Trump campaign and chief strategist. He was one of many members of a rotating cast of grifters and yes men who surrounded then-candidate Trump. Manafort, though, was a veteran political operative who got his start in the 1970s, working with the likes of self-proclaimed dirty trickster Roger Stone, Lee Atwater, the late Republican hatchet man behind the wildly racist Willie Horton ad of the 1988 presidential campaign. And then Manafort's career took a bit of a turn. He started making a living, a lucrative one, by advising and lobbying on behalf of dictators and strongmen. In the early 2000s, he started working for Russian President Vladimir Putin's puppet candidate to lead Ukraine, a guy named Viktor Yanukovych. Now, Yanukovych had tried to steal the presidential election in Ukraine in October 2004 through stuffed ballot boxes and voter intimidation, and his opponent, the pro-Ukraine guy, was even poisoned, apparently by Russian agents. Remember that? His face became disfigured. And all of that, the macabre spectacle of the face.
My bad.
A popular uprising in Ukraine known as the Orange Revolution, and it brought Viktor Yanukovych down. It handed the election to the legitimate winner. It was
Let me start that over. My bad. Trying to multitask, and I'm really upset at all this stuff. But let me get back to this. And I timed it so well to start it, I just didn't click on the button.
To about 44 million people, roughly the same as Spain. It's one of the largest countries by landmass, not population, on the European continent. So it's a big and important place, but it's not the kind of place that would normally be the center of U.S. politics. Except it very much has been. For years, Ukraine has occupied an outsized role in American political discourse. Just look at a guy like Paul Manafort. You might remember him. Back in 2016, he was named chairman of the Trump campaign and chief strategist. He was one of many members of a rotating cast of grifters and yes men who surrounded then-candidate Trump. Manafort, though, was a veteran political operative who got his start in the 1970s, working with the likes of self-proclaimed dirty trickster Roger Stone, and Lee Atwater, the late Republican hatchet man behind the wildly racist Willie Horton ad of the 1988 presidential campaign. And then Manafort's career took a bit of a turn. He started making a living, a lucrative one, by advising and lobbying on behalf of dictators and strongmen. In the early 2000s, he started working for Russian President Vladimir Putin's puppet candidate to lead Ukraine, a guy named Viktor Yanukovych. Now, Yanukovych had tried to steal the presidential election in Ukraine in October 2004 through stuffed ballot boxes and voter intimidation, and his opponent, the pro-Ukraine guy, was even poisoned, apparently by Russian agents. Remember that? His face became disfigured.
And all of that, the macabre spectacle, the face disfigurement, and all, led to a popular uprising in Ukraine known as the Orange Revolution, and it brought Viktor Yanukovych down. It handed the election to the legitimate winner. And it was around this time that Yanukovych hired Paul Manafort. Manafort was assisted by a political operative named Konstantin Kilimnik, who U.S. investigators say is a Russian intelligence official and was integral to Manafort's dealings in Ukraine and Russia. Manafort then gave the Ukrainian Putin candidate a complete political makeover, dressing him like a more traditional politician, coiffed hair, nice suits. Manafort taught the candidate how to mine empathy when speaking to voters, how to modulate his voice when giving speeches. As journalist Franklin Fork reported in Slate, quote, one Ukrainian columnist cheekily asked his readers to identify the 10 elements of Yanukovych rallies that Manafort had imported from the Republican conventions he'd run. And guess what? Their work paid off. The Putin puppet, Viktor Yanukovych, won the Ukrainian presidency in 2010 in an election that was still tainted by allegations of corruption, but it did look like he really won. And things were going fine for this new Putin-approved president for a few years until 2013. And that's when Yanukovych refused to sign this trade agreement with the European Union, opting instead to align Ukraine closer with, guessed it, Russia. And this decision, along with the naked corruption of Yanukovych and his cronies, sparked massive protests across the country spanning multiple months. Yanukovych was eventually forced out of office as a result, eventually fleeing in the middle of the night to Russia in early 2014. Putin was not happy. He had lost his puppet president, and there were huge pro-democracy protests next door. This was a seismic moment for the Russian president, and you can see that in three brazen geopolitical moves that he made afterwards. The first thing he did was to seize Crimea from Ukraine. Almost immediately after those pro-democracy protests in Ukraine, Putin sent armed soldiers, his little green men, into Crimea, no flags on their uniforms. They occupied government buildings, and Russian forces quickly took control. It was, up until that point, the largest European land grab since World War II. And Putin basically got away with it. There was international condemnation and some sanctions, but nothing close to the outcry we're seeing today. That leads us to the second brazen thing he did. In 2015, Putin deployed official Russian troops outside the former Soviet republics for the first time since the end of the Cold War. He sent troops to intervene in Syria, and they are still there today to keep Bashar al-Assad in power. That intervention was incredibly expensive and brutal, but essentially decisive. Putin managed to secure the victory he wanted, and Assad has stayed in power. That same year, in 2015, Donald Trump announced his run for president, and right before the RNC, where he will accept the party nomination, Trump hires Paul Manafort to come run his campaign for free. Manafort, the guy who got Putin's...
Okay. Follow-up article. Trump pardons Roger Stone, Paul Manafort, and Charles Kushner. Paul Manafort. He was the guy that last week we reported that was trying to get out of the country, trying to fly to Dubai, and his passport was revoked. There are going to be those that are like, okay, this is Watergate. All right, this is much worse than Watergate. This is much worse than Watergate. This is literally a threat to our democracy. And if you think I'm overreacting, that's okay. You have the right to think that. But sit back and look at everything that we've shown just this far. Okay, just what we've shown this far. And remember this as well. Propaganda 101. Tell a lie big enough, keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. Accuse the other side of that which you are guilty. Propaganda works best when those who are being manipulated are confident that they are acting on their own free will. Russia has been using the Nazi playbook to create and grow and make militants out of QAnon and followers of Trump. And if you don't want to believe that, okay. But you should at least consider it. Otherwise, we are way too close for something happening. Trump's in a box. Putin's in a bunker. Russia has
plans to test its unmanned doomsday nuke
Russia has
this fall, 1 year after a fatal nuclear-powered missile accident led to a radiation spike in a nearby city. The nuclear-powered Poseidon underwater drone will be test launched from the Belgorod submarine. The drone, like a giant torpedo, is built to carry a nuclear warhead weighing up to 2 megatons and is described by weapons analysts as a doomsday nuke. Powered by a small nuclear reactor, the Poseidon has a believed range of 10,000 kilometers across the world's oceans. Launched from the Barents Sea or other waters in the Arctic, the drone can autonomously cross the North Atlantic. If detonated off the eastern coast of the United States, the nuclear warhead could create a tens of meters high tsunami wave in addition to damage caused by the nuclear blast itself. The Barents Observer first reported about the weapon's existence in 2016. In March 2018, President Vladimir Putin confirmed the existence of the upcoming giant underwater drone. The Poseidon was one of 6 new strategic nuclear weapons presented by the president at the time. In July 2018, the Defense Ministry released a video showing the workshop where the drone was assembled and an animated film demonstrating how the drone could be used in a real warfare situation. A drone has several advantages. A submarine with a crew on board is, of course, a powerful weapon, but there are certain restrictions on the human factor. The Poseidon can practically be on alert and perform assigned tasks at any time. The appearance of this class of drones requires a lot of responsibility because it is managed via software. It is clear that there are certain risks when in operation hackers can try to take control. With the deep-diving Poseidon drone, Russia will counter any U.S. missile defense systems and ensure deterrence with a second strike capability. The plan is to deploy 16 Poseidon drones on combat duty with the Northern Fleet. 2 special-purpose submarines, the Belgorod and the Khabarovsk, are to carry the weapons. Both submarines were built at the Sevmash yard in Severodonetsk. The Belgorod is a prototype submarine based on a prolonged hull of an Oscar II class nuclear-powered submarine. It was launched in April 2019 and is expected to start sea trials within a few months. The second submarine to carry the Poseidon is the Khabarovsk, a special prototype submarine based on the hull of Russia's 4th-generation ballistic missile subs of the Bore class. The Khabarovsk will be launched from the workshop at Sevmash as early as June 2020, followed by a 2-year testing period. There is no specified place where the Poseidon drone test launch will take place, but new submarine-based weapons are normally tested in the White Sea, which has the advantage of not being international waters where...
Okay, this is where we've seen a lot of Air Force activity in the way of information gathering, intelligence gathering around this area. And this is the area they're talking about where the test may take place. Again, this is an older video, and the test. This video was made possible by Dashlane. The test probably has taken place, according to information we've gotten. This comes from 2019 and gives you an idea of how this potential weapon would work. Having seen what has gone on in the rest of the Russian military, I don't know how much stock I put into all this. However, the missiles and the planes of Russia seem to be working better than their ground mechanisms, and their ships seem to be functioning. So we can't discount this. This is not something to lose sleep over, because if it happens, we won't know about it until after it happens. It's just something to be aware of and something to take into account that President Biden is aware of when he's trying to deal with everything that's going on.
Stay safe online for 10% off by being one of the first 200 to use the code RLL at checkout. Here at Real Life Lore, we're big fans of natural disasters. We've talked about volcanoes, tornadoes, dropping nukes into hurricanes, asteroids hitting the Earth.
Let's jump ahead a little bit here because we don't care about that.
Pacific, the deepest part of the world's oceans, would catastrophically destroy the entire planet, and other channels have famously debunked that, because it's actually even worse. A tsunami.
Okay, here we go. Let's start about right here.
Blast can create an electromagnetic pulse, or EMP effect, that can fry or disable electronics. And apparently, a nuclear blast underwater can create something potentially even worse. A tsunami, and not just any tsunami, a half-kilometer tall, radioactive, apocalypse-scale tsunami. The only country in the world that's apparently been crazy enough to develop a weapon like this so far is, unsurprisingly, Russia. The weapon's official name is Status 6 Oceanic Multipurpose System, and its codename is Poseidon. The first public report of the weapon system dates back to September 2015, and the details are genuinely insane. It's a weapon so powerful it seems like it should belong in a bad science fiction movie, and yet it's apparently quite real. Poseidon is an unmanned drone in the shape of a torpedo that can be loaded onto and launched by a submarine. A Poseidon drone could also remain dormant in a box on the ocean floor, just waiting for a signal to come back to life before carrying out its apocalyptic attack, like a Reaper from Mass Effect. Either way, once a Poseidon is armed and activated, it can have a range of 10,000 kilometers, and it slowly travels across the ocean ominously towards its target over a period of weeks or even months.
So these could have been planted a long time ago. These could be getting into position, and that's why Russia hasn't attacked the United States yet. Those are just realities. Those aren't expectations. Those are just possibilities.
Drone travels so slowly in order to avoid detection, but when it's nearby an enemy coastline, it rushes ahead at over 100 miles per hour to get close enough to detonate its nuclear bomb before it's detected. The bomb that the Poseidon drone carries is allegedly the most powerful nuclear device ever created, capable of unleashing a completely insane 200 megatons of explosive power.
Now, the previous video said 2 megatons. This is saying 200 megatons. I don't think it would be that big of a warhead, but that's really irrelevant other than how big the tsunami wave would be and how much radioactivity would vaporize in the air and be carried in the wave.
And all of it underwater. For reference as to why that's insane, the biggest bomb ever tested by humanity so far was the Tsar Bomba by the Soviet Union. That bomb destroyed every building in a 55-kilometer radius, caused third-degree burns 100 kilometers away, and shattered windows that were 900 kilometers away. It was detonated here in Novaya Zemlya, and shattered windows all the way over here in northern Norway and Finland. The shockwave from the explosion circled the entire Earth 3 times, and despite all of that awesome power, it was only 50 megatons. The Poseidon bomb has 4 times that amount of power, unleashing that amount of raw power.
That may be the absolute maximum potential of it. Again, I'm thinking they're over exaggerating here, but in reality, if it does happen, and this video says 16. Actually, according to intelligence, they've got 32 of them, 16 for the Atlantic Fleet and 16 for the Pacific Fleet.
Underwater is allegedly enough to generate a 500-meter-high tsunami wave in the direction of an enemy's coastline. That wave would be so high that it's almost impossible to fully appreciate. So here is what the Empire State Building would look like right next to it. The 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami that devastated Indonesia only reached a maximum height of only 30 meters. and is over 16 times shorter than the Poseidon tsunami. What's even worse, though, is the Poseidon nuclear bomb is apparently a cobalt bomb, specifically designed to unleash more radioactive fallout than a normal nuclear bomb.
Again, that's speculation. That's not intelligence. He says apparently, because that is a possibility. Okay, just to make sure all the definitions
This
are
not
correct.
only makes the wave freakishly huge, but also intensely radioactively contaminated. So now imagine you're just chilling, hanging out on the coast, and you notice a 500-meter high radioactive death tsunami bearing down on you. What would you do in that situation? The weapon is apparently specifically designed to circumvent the capable US and European missile defense systems. If nuclear missiles are heading towards your country, you can at least try and shoot some of them down before they make an impact, and you have a chance. But what chance do you have at stopping a 500-meter high mega tsunami? Once the bomb has gone off underwater, it's already pretty much too late. The tsunami is going to happen. This is a simulated flood projection that was developed by the University of Washington if only a 100 megaton bomb was detonated underwater off the coast of Long Island. But even a
Again, they're talking about 100 ton. I would say two megaton, 2 megaton maybe at the most. But still, that's it's irrelevant, especially if they do have 16 of them around the coasts of the United States and Alaska, and 16 of them around Europe, which is, I don't know. They would end up poisoning themselves. Would be a distinct possibility. So I'm going to run through the rest of the news very quickly here, because I don't want this long. I want it to be short enough that people are going to watch it, even though they get the little glitch in the middle. It's live. I'm trying to produce direct, right, and do all this myself. I mentioned Madison Cawthorn earlier, and this is what he says about again, I don't think he's a hero just because he's exposing what anybody. I ran for Congress. I spent more than a couple of weeks in Washington, D.C. I know what happens. I know how things go. Just because this guy's 26 years old and doesn't know when to keep his mouth shut for the good of his political career doesn't make him a hero, because he says things like this.
In this country, I believe when we take the House back, we're going to put Anthony Fauci in jail. I truly believe.
Okay, the guy behind him thinks that's such an asinine statement that he doesn't want to be associated with him anymore. Just so you notice the body language.
In this country, I believe when we take the House back, we're going to put Anthony Fauci in jail. I truly believe.
So there you go. A little message from the mayor of
Vladimir, you have about 2/3.
And this is the mayor of Kiev, former heavyweight boxing champion.
Vladimir, you have about 2/3 of the support of the American people right now. There is a small group, I'm not one of them, there's a small group that believe that what's happening in Ukraine is not the United States' problem. There's some very popular television hosts, Tucker Carlson. I talked about a popular Candace Owens as well, conservatives who would typically...
Okay, this guy's on Newsmax, you notice. And for him slamming Tucker Carlson for craziness, hey, I just report the stuff. I don't create any of this. All right. None of these are my creations. I'm just showing you what's going on because mainstream media decides what they want to show you. They decide what you should know. And there are things that you should know that you're not getting shown.
I don't know why they're not supporting you in Ukraine, but they're not. What do you say to those people?
If you passively observe what is going on And we do share the same principles of freedom and democratic principles, like the United States, like the Western world, so to speak. If you're passively observing, you're part of this invasion. Blood is on your hands too. If you still have business and trade with Russia, and you don't isolate Russia economically, you're bringing bullets and rockets into.
So, basically telling Tucker Carlson and Candace Owen that you're part of this invasion and blood is on your hands too. While both his message to them is significant, it's also significant that Newsmax is slamming Fox. Michael Flynn's nonprofit called America's Future. Michael Flynn, again, also one of those pardoned by Trump, if you'll remember. Michael Flynn's nonprofit America's Future was soliciting donations to a P.O. box in Northport, Florida. America's Future was $4,700 in the red in 2020, yet it gave $1 million to the Cyber Ninjas for the Arizona audit in 2021. America's Future was not registered as a charity until Florida 5 days ago. This is how money laundering works, okay? This is exposing money laundering for anyone that cares, anyone that's watching in the national security agencies. Come on. The information's out there, like they said on the X-Files. Anonymous in various forms, very active, and not the least of which is this report. They've breached the National People's Congress of the People's Republic of China, and they're going to be releasing State Department documents from China. This is Putin's chef, Benjamin Prigozhin, and he's wanted by the FBI. This is the guy that founded the Wagner Group or Wagner Group or Legia. He's wanted by the FBI for he's conspired to defraud the U.S. by interfering with the functions of the Federal Election Commission, Justice Department, and State Department. I'm giving you all the people that tie this all together with the corruption within those that tried to overthrow the government, because they're going to try to overthrow it again. And if we're not aware and ready, it'll be relatively easy for them to do. And if you're okay with that, be okay. Otherwise, do something. If you can't do anything else, share this. Let people decide for themselves. For those, I always, sometimes I get so carried away with the political stuff and the corruption and the absolute just flat out lies that go on. I don't show a lot of the stuff that's going on the ground in the military. And I know I've got military guys that watch this just because I get stuff that others don't get. This is a look inside the Star Streak. It's a 3-shot missile, and this is the missile that comes out. It's a 3-shot missile that has 3 separate warheads on it. So it's incredibly effective against Russian aircraft because simply their normal evasive maneuvers are countered by this missile. So that's a look at that, and I'll try to get you all, those of you that are military, I'll try to get you a look at it live. Again, Putin money paid to try and engineer a coup in a foreign country. He did the same thing. He tried to do the same thing in America that he did in Ukraine. We just showed you the clip of the guy that Paul Manafort helped to get in, doing the same thing that he tried to do here. And QAnon, as I've been saying for a long, long time, QAnon is just a Russian propaganda machine. And they tried to do the same thing as they did in Ukraine. Now, again, as far as taking over the government, as far as forcing Trump back into power, not all Republicans agree with this, but the Trump people are trying to take a constitutional move, which is for the Republican Party to take back control of the U.S. House of Representatives. Now, if the Republican Party takes control of the House of Representatives, they can appoint anyone they want as Speaker of the House. The Speaker of the House does not have to be a member of Congress. Okay? Why is it even significant? Because the order of secession, if something were to happen, if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, both the president and the vice president, were taken out at the same time, by the Constitution, the next president of the United States is the Speaker of the House.
And I'm going to nominate Donald Trump for Speaker of the United States House of Representatives.
No, you're really not, Gates, because if there's any justice at all, you're going to be in prison for sex trafficking a minor across state lines, which is a felony. But somebody will nominate him to be Speaker of the House if that's the worst case scenario. That might be our only salvation in hopes of actually having an election in 2022. Depending on what charges are brought against Trump, they may not wait that long. They may not take a chance for an election. They just may try to seize power. And for those of you that think, oh God, this sounds crazy, I was saying the same stuff from November 17th when I was leaked the Oath Keepers' plans for January 6th. For 6 straight weeks, I was saying this kind of stuff, pointing to January 6th. Okay. I don't have a date yet. I don't have a date as when they will, a time that they're going to act. I don't have that. I've got the same stuff I had back then, and everything is pointing to the Republican Party wants to take over the country and make it a Christian nation, even though nothing about it would represent Christian values. The fact that they call themselves Christian is enough for them. It's not going to be enough for Jesus, not going to be enough for God, but that's at the end. They're concerned about now. Okay. I wish I didn't have to talk about all this stuff. I wish I could talk about who the Colts are going to get, to be to be that veteran wide receiver presence. Are they going to sign T.Y. Hilton back? Are they going to get Jarvis Landry? Are they, I wish I could talk about that kind of stuff instead of showing what we have to show and talk about what we have to talk about, because in my opinion, nothing is more important than saving our democracy. And you can't fix a problem if you're not aware of a problem. So I'm shouting to the world that we've got a problem. And it's not, don't get me wrong, it's not just America and Russia. There are right-winged fascist regimes ready to take hold all around the world. When they say they want a new world order, they do. When they accuse the Democrats of wanting a new world order, remember the propaganda: accuse your enemy, accuse the other side of that which you are guilty. They do want a new world order. They want it to be a fascist, white, dominated world order, misogynistic. The Christianity part is just a rouge to get people to follow, to get people to be conned into service. And for those that don't believe that, I'll gladly. You put up anybody from Mike Pence to Marco Rubio, and I will go head to head with them about Christianity and about their behaviors and their actions, and they can do the same with mine. I do not kowtow to bullies, and we're facing a bunch of bullies, and I think people are probably out there laughing at this broadcast now, and that's okay, because this is not what you normally hear. It's just what you need to hear, and you're going to keep hearing. And if you don't want to hear it, put your head in the sand, go watch Fox, because Fox isn't going to tell you any of this stuff. Of course, that's why Chris Wallace left Fox, a reputable journalist, but that's another story. A different anonymous group, Anonymous NB65, hacked all the Russian state television and radio broadcasts, and also Squad 303 of Anonymous sent 50 million different messages to Russian citizens. This was interesting. Chinese oil and gas company canceled their $500 million investment in Russia. This was a couple of days ago, but we haven't been able to get to it because of everything going on. And as far as propaganda, Bridget Gabriel, and Bridget is a survivor of terrorism. She's Act for America. She's the founder and chairman of Act for America. She's a best-selling author and national security expert, and she's also a liar, okay? Imagine if Biden tried to host a rally in Georgia with 30-mile-per-hour wind and near freezing temperatures. No one would show up. President Trump did just that, and over 25,000 people attended, and thousands were not able to get there. It's unprecedented, unparalleled greatness. No, it's bullshit. Here's what actually happened. Here's Trump up here speaking. Here's who was actually there. Now, if you just saw her statement and you didn't know anything else, you'd go, okay, you just accept it. Don't. I got another clip down here that, and this is very interesting. QAnon, the first Q drop, the first sentence that came from Q was the 28th of October in 2017. The last one was 8 days into December 2020. Okay, shortly before January 6th, 2021. So it was before Charlottesville, or it was 2 months after Charlottesville, when they saw, okay, we can capitalize on, when Russia saw we can capitalize on this racism disguised as white nationalism and Christianity. We can capitalize on that and divide the country, which is exactly what they were trying to do in Ukraine. In those elections that we showed you, that all of this ties together. All of this ties together. According to Bellingcat, the Russian FBI basically paid billions of dollars to ensure that some shadowy political class in Ukraine supported this war and created an internal coup d'etat immediately after the invasion. But Ukraine agents who took the money ditched them, and they are now living abroad. So they tried to do the same thing again in Ukraine that they did in the past, and they tried to do and almost succeeded, and are still manipulating, even though they haven't posted anything, because people are on it now, and people were on it then. But that's why they haven't heard anything since that time. There really is no Q. It was a Russian operation. It was a Russian propaganda operation right out of the Hitler playbook. This is troubling. In 1991, one of Jenny Thomas's aunts told the Washington Post that Clarence Thomas was so nice, we forgot he was black, adding, he treated her so well, all of his other qualities made up for him being black. Okay, she didn't marry him for anything other than potential power, and he was a rising star, and she grabbed a hold, and now she's a terrorist. One person freedom fighter is another person's terrorist, and she's trying to bring down. I believe she is still actively working to bring down the United States government, and I think it ought to be taken seriously. And I think every member of Congress that supported or that still supports should be suspended immediately. I'm not saying removed from office. I'm saying suspended, and without pay, without benefits, and they'll damn sure want a speedy trial if that happens, or a lot of them will just go away quietly. If we really want to put this down, if we really want to stop this, we're going to have to start cropping the numbers somewhere. And if we're the good guys, we should start legally. Just saying. Here's another look at Trump's. Here's another look at Trump's speech, just so you can see. He is indeed coming off the stage, and you can see there's like 2 rows of people back here, and this is in the front. Okay, these are the prime seats. All right, so nowhere close to 25,000, probably not even. Probably not even 2,000. All right. It was at a county fairgrounds. If your guy lost, it's because you didn't fly enough flags on your truck. Blame yourself. Okay. If you're still watching this and you're a Trump supporter, it's clear it was your fault. You don't have enough Trump flags. You don't have enough hats. You don't have enough shirts. You're to blame. Donald lost because of you. Now help him buy a $1 million or $100 million plane. And let's get to some real serious stuff here, because there is a major conflict going on in Ukraine, and we'll focus more on that tomorrow night. This is more focused on what is, what needs to happen here in the United States now, because it will impact the rest of the world. And, the good thing about not giving an F what people think is you can tell the truth and feel good about it and know that whether people accept it or not, it's not about you. You've done your job. I'm getting drained from all this, watching all this war, seeing all of this ugliness and hatred, and yet I'm not tired at all, because we look at something like we're about to look at, and we realize how good we really do have it here. And that's something worth fighting for, how good we have it here from those that are wanting to take it away, even though they're ignorant asshats that have no clue they're being used. And the only value they ever have is once a year or once every 2 years when they vote. That's the only value they have. It's the only value most of us have to anybody in the political elite of either party. It can be changed, not overnight. It can be changed. But there have to be enough of us willing to do it. And maybe if we don't change it, we end up like this. Lord, I hope not. But these are people trying to escape Mariupol.
Посмотри. Ничего не осталось. Ничего, вообще ничего. Ничего. Слышишь, стреляют? Да слышу. С пулемета и с калашей. Бой идет на перекрестке. Наши воюют. А держатся наши. Все равно держатся наши. Глянь. Это ж только что, глянь, отстроен, отреставрированный дом. Только реставрировали.
These were beautiful, beautiful buildings not long ago.
Представляешь?
Look at this.
Грамтеатр.
For what?
Это что сюда я тебе на ногти на волос.
Здесь я делала ресницы.
Сделала. Глянь,
машина сгоревшая.
Дом вообще сгоревший. Глянь, впереди машина сгоревшая.
Saying I can't believe what they've done to my city. She's saying just get us out of here.
Я в клуб кино посмотреть вечером, да? И морюшко посмотреть. Улыбались, отдыхать едем, на морюшко шашлыки едем. Мясо кушать, шампанское. А теперь едем и плачем. Что сделал? Я в клуб живу еще.
He's saying they're some of the lucky ones. And yes. Okay. You'll also hear that there was a 7-minute period in, or a 7-hour period. If you're my age, or slightly younger, if you're my age or older, you remember the Watergate hearings, and you remember the I am not a crook from Dick Nixon. And that was about an 18.5 minute, lapse in recordings that he had erased. We're talking about a 7-hour gap here. And we're talking about a 7-hour period where somebody that likes to talk an awful lot has absolutely no phone conversations with anybody, incoming or outgoing. And one of the first questions was burner phone. And Trump made a formal statement and said, he didn't know what a burner phone was. He had never heard the term. That was this morning. Within 2 hours, National Security Advisor John Bolton said on Tuesday that Trump used the term burner phones and was aware of its meaning, according to a new report. And just in case you have some doubt, in a court hearing, in court documents, in his lawsuit against his niece, who was telling the truth, Mary L. Trump, he uses burner phones at least 3 different times. So one final thing here I want to one other thing, actually, I've got to talk about this real quickly too. And I'm not going to blow it up because I don't want to exploit it. I don't want it, glamorized in any way. This is footage of what happened outside of Tel Aviv last night. A Palestinian, more than likely associated with Hamas or ISIS, but as of this, no one has formally taken responsibility. But you see the gunman chase this guy on the bicycle or on the motorcycle. He shoots him, shoots another guy in a car, shoots two other people, and then has shot himself. So a total of 5 people dead in a what is deemed a terrorist act. And the Israeli Security Council is having an emergency meeting. An ammunition depot exploded in Belgorod, Russia, earlier our time. Now, the official report was that it was human activity. So we're assuming it was sabotage and not a missile strike. France has reported 217,480 new coronavirus tests or cases, the biggest one-day increase in 2 months. This is some more footage of what happened, and more footage of that. I had all this before everything else started coming out. Congressman Steve Womack, who was probably involved, just denied Madison Cawthorn's claim that Republicans invited him to cocaine orgies, saying that many GOP lawmakers, quote, go to bed at 9 p.m. and still use fax machines and flip phones. We can confirm that there is indeed an organization called Alpha One. It is a Ukrainian Foreign Legion team of multinational special forces operators, and including American volunteers, and they played a key role in liberating Irpin, one of the cities we've talked about quite a bit. And just because you have to question whose side is who, who's on whose side. How can people get away with stuff and then this happens? Mick Mulvaney, a top aide to Trump, has been hired by CBS News to serve as a contributor. This is her. This is her saying a top aide to trader and coup planner, but I don't think Trump planned it. I just think he went along with it. I don't think he's smart enough to plan it, to be honest with you, but that's for another episode. I've already gone longer than I wanted to, and I've got so much more to talk about. So I'm just going to give you an idea of some things that are going to be coming up. We're going to be talking about what's going on with the earth. Okay. We're going to be talking about what's going on with the drought in the West. The Hoover Dam has never been lower than it is right now in its history. We're going to be talking about the record high temperatures at both poles, the North and South Pole. And we'll be talking about possibility of polar flip, the idea that the magnetic poles could indeed shift, and if that would mean a geographic shift or just a shift in the magnetic fields. Either one of them are going to be devastating if they are to happen, and some believe they're in the process of happening now. And that's why we're seeing the temperatures at the poles fluctuate. And that's why we're seeing earthquakes, bigger storms, more impact climate-wise. So we'll talk about all that, coming up in the future, in the coming days, because the sad thing is scientists don't know what's going on. They've never seen anything like this. It's hotter than I'm just going to let this reporter from India explain just real quick here before we close out.
What is that one thing that's been featuring in almost every conversation these days? The heat. It's not even April yet, and New Delhi is recording 41 degrees Celsius. The situation is the same in cities across India and outside. Mumbai, for example, is hovering around 35 degrees. In Bhopal, it's almost 40 degrees. Such temperature is not normal. What's happening is not normal. It is called global warming, and it is plaguing even the coldest places on Earth. This is the Concordia Research Station. It is in Antarctica. The temperature here has gone up by 38 degrees Celsius. This place is 38 degrees warmer than usual. 38 degrees. Think of it as New Delhi being 38 degrees warmer than average, burning at 80 degrees Celsius, or London being 60 degrees Celsius, or Abu Dhabi recording a temperature of 80 degrees plus. That's the kind of calamity Antarctica is battling. On a normal day, temperature around this research station would be around minus 80 degrees. Cold enough for our fingers, toes and nose to freeze within a minute. During summers, the temperature in this part of the planet rises to minus 25 degrees Celsius. Right now, Antarctica is approaching winters. Ideally, the temperature should have been around minus 49 degrees Celsius. Instead, on the 18th of March, scientists recorded a temperature of minus 11.5. It was 38 degrees warmer than the same last year.
So for those of you watching, that's 38 degrees Celsius, 38 degrees Celsius warmer. It's about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, just so that there's a comparison. And I just want to...
Партнеру Трампу стать президентом на нашем...
Put this up. We don't need the volume. You can read down here at the bottom for yourselves what is being said. We are at a dangerous time, in my opinion, in our democracy. We're watching here on the screen the Russian equivalent of Tucker Carlson, basically calling upon the people of America to rise up. Donald Trump calling on Putin to give him dirt on Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden's a private citizen and has no impact on what's happening in the government to anybody except Donald Trump and his delusional followers. Are they dangerous? Did you think what happened January 6th was good? If you did, no, they're not dangerous. If you didn't think what happened January 6th, this time it won't be like that. The next time it won't be as peaceful as it was January 6th. I hope there is no next time. I hope we as a country can diffuse the lies, but it's going to take Republicans. It's going to take Republicans to stop this. It is. And I hope they do. But I fear they will go along to get along. And if that's the case, that won't end well for the majority of the United States and the majority of the world. Just something to think about. This is News Done.